Yes. And we're back. Episode 453. First episode of 2023. It's great to be back. It's great to have had a break. And we're going to start the year with a positive podcast. And it's immensely upbeat. And I know that my listeners out there, all of you out there across the world, Happy New Year. But you'll be so happy and pleased to hear something of this nature. We've got Bruce McClean of BNB Tours Colombia, so BNBColombia, one of our sponsors. You will know, of course. Thank you, Bruce, for this, of always supporting the Colombia Calling podcast. But we're back and we're talking tourism, we're talking travel, and we're talking, I think it sounds like a travel boom. Bruce, welcome back on the Colombia Calling podcast.
Thanks for having me, Richard. Thanks.
It's an absolute pleasure. You are one of the top sponsors of the podcast, so therefore I am immensely grateful at all times. It allows me to pay Emily a little something, and that's the key thing. She is a working journalist, and people really love her news updates, so we are always very, very pleased with that. But Bruce, let's talk about tourism and travel and tourism. From my perspective, and as anyone's looking on YouTube, you can see I'm in my house in Monpós. Monpós is jam-packed right now, high season, January. It's largely national tourists because we are that kind of destination. But I'm looking ahead in the calendar, and in the next couple of weeks, I've got German groups, Dutch groups, French groups. It feels like we are returning to the happier times of 2019. How do you feel?
I feel fantastic, to be honest with you, Richard. Look, what's happening for us is just amazing. We are just getting inquiries daily. We're getting a lot of inquiries with short notice as well. We're getting, people who are coming in a couple of weeks. We're getting people who are also coming February, March, June. We've got people for December. Everybody wants to come here, and for good reason. As you know, it's just the paradise. This whole country is just amazing.
We know. I mean, you and I, long-term, my immigrants to Colombia, we are happy. You're there in Viterbo, Caldas, which, of course, the coffee zone is glorious. I'm up here, it's sweaty. It's still glorious, but you can see the sheen on my head.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where are your main inquiries and sales coming from? Where can we see the return to tourism growth?
For us, easily US. US is the biggest, followed by Canada. I think it's because it's just a direct flight generally, so it's easy for them to get here. They're coming for 10 to 12 days, 14. Well, I haven't said that. I've had a number who have actually coming for 21 to 28 days. So there's some bigger people with more time on their hands, let's just say, who can come and experience really Colombia. Because if you're only coming for a short time, like 5 days or a week, it's like one or two destinations at the most. And as you know, there's dozens of places to go here. There's amazing locations, east, west, north, everywhere you can go, and we take them everywhere it's safe to go.
Well, I love this, and we'll get into safety in a minute, but the US market obviously is the market to break, and it's been the hardest market. I mean, let's not bring in Australia or New Zealand. It's just so far away. We can hear you're from New Zealand. I mean, it's just such a long trip. But the US, as you say, direct flights to most major Colombian cities. And if they're not starting, they will start soon to others. There used to be, I know, into like Armenia and places like that from Pereira, but I'm sure that those have been sort of cut. But given this,
they've started again. Pereira, direct flights, Pereira, Miami to Pereira, and somewhere else as well. Yes.
Well, not Manizales, because that airport is decorative. It's always
that's true.
But this is just a huge deal for me. This is just a huge deal that this is happening, because we couldn't get US tourists really. I mean, I've worked in tourism a long time, or I've been an observer and a writer about tourism for a long time before doing other things, but we couldn't get them to leave the main cities, Bogota, Cartagena, and Medellin. But now you are selling other locations to the US market. Where are they enjoying? Where are you pitching to them?
Look, a lot of people are interested in the Amazon because it's the Amazon. But as well as that, because obviously you've got the indigenous, you've got the wildlife, you've got trekking through the Amazon jungle or going in canoes, that sort of thing in there. But what we're actually finding is that a lot of people want to come to El Guaviare also. You know, there's got the rock paintings there, 12,000-year-old rock paintings. You're not behind some velvet rope where you can't touch things. Colombia's, there's something I love about this country where not everything is necessarily politically correct. You can touch things, you can see fossils and touch them and that sort of stuff. And El Guaviare is a perfect example. Rock painting, 12,000-year-old rock paintings. You could also do a trek through the Amazon jungle because the Amazon jungle still goes up there. You can also swim with pink dolphins. You see an amazing amount of wildlife in the way of monkeys and armadillos and other things around the trees and everywhere. That's definitely one of the top growing for us. Next would be Casanare in Jopal. There is biggest, if as soon as I ask a question, do you want to see wildlife? Yes, that's where they're going. Because it's like unbelievable. It's like an open zoo. There's just everything around. There's capibaras, there's caiman, there's barbillas, there's wild deer, wild horses. There's just small anteaters, the giant anteaters, anacondas. Difficult to see the anacondas, difficult to see the jaguars, but they are there. You will, see their footprints if you're very lucky. But we have safaris there and 4x4s or horseback, staying in one location or traveling from an atoll to another atoll to another atoll for one day to another day to another day. An atoll is a homestead. So it's amazing location. Those would be our two large or fastest growing. But having said that, I think the Pacific coast is going to go boom very shortly also, especially as we've got some wonderful new indigenous experience there that we're just starting to offer. Mm-hmm. We've only just got it worked out now with which is just amazing, actually staying with the indigenous for 2 or 3 days in their community. You fly into Nuki on the Pacific coast, then you go down by boat a little bit, and then you actually go by canoe up a river for an hour and a half to get to this location. So it's like remote. But it's something really cool, and I think that's just gonna wow people as well.
These are the experiential vacations, aren't they? There's an authenticity to them. We're using the keywords right now for travel agency, but it's very experiential, and that's what people are looking for, aren't they? And the authenticity of it. I went to Casanare many years ago when my son may have been about 4 years old, so it's about 3 years or 4 years ago. It was definitely pre-pandemic. Actually, it was probably 3. It was the most family-friendly and most exciting place to go. I truly loved it, and from atoll to atoll, so from like sort of homestead. Great translation. That is a homestead to homestead. Because of course he was too young to be on a horse, we could do little horse trips, but we got a tractor, and that took us across. And then awesome. the llanero cowboy, barefoot, of course, playing his guitar on the back of the tractor at sunset with the birds coming in to nest, the roost. I mean, it was just phenomenal, and I dream of returning. Guaviare I've been to twice as a journalist, but have managed to slide in some tourism. Once was back in 2007-8, and I very nearly got in trouble because I was going out to the Cerro Azul, so that the rock meetings, and I was on the back of a motorcycle, and it was still very much guerrilla territory, and the army gave me a hard time for going out there. And then we got a flat tire in between the main highway and the Cerro Azul. And so my moto driver said, listen, I've got to go back to San Jose and get a tire, and we'll go back, and then I'll come back and get you. we'll leave you on this farm. So, as you know, it's basically a campesino. So, as you say, smallholder farm. Very nice man. You know how people are in Colombia. Very humble.
Oh, yeah.
Very, I mean, I would say poor, but rich in being able to embrace a foreigner on his land, welcome me in, and he gave me some sort of chicha, and he sat here, and he was a man of few words, and he just said, as the day progressed, he said, you know, at some stage it's going to get too dark for you to be here, because that's when the muchachos come through. And I was just like, yeah, I'm really hoping that the motorcycle comes back. But I'm happy to say, and you will obviously confirm, that these times have changed in that region. You can visit all these places securely. Casanare is obviously absolutely fine. I mean, but Guaviare always did have a bit more of a reputation. You know, I mean, if you look at a map, you've got Bogota, then you've got below it, you've got the department of Meta, and then below that's Guaviare. It's only like 160 kilometers south of Bogota or something. I mean, it's a straight line. But you are now telling me you send your people there, you send Americans there. That means it's safe.
Absolutely. But of course, it's safe where we take you. Yeah. You know, there are still places very close by, like Chiribiquete, the national park there, which I want to go, but nobody can go because it still has an unsafe element in there. You know, the most you can fly over it, but that's, you know, that is close. There are places we don't take people, but when we take people, it's spectacular. And sorry, I forgot to mention Canin Cristales. I went there myself last year as well. That is just amazing. And it's not just Canin Cristales. That's the thing that really, you know, there's, you know, hikes, you can do jungle walks and that sort of stuff, and so many monkeys, and it's a wonderful, wonderful place to go as well. And bird watching. Yeah. Amazing.
Chiribiquete, you only get to go now if you're Prince Charles, well, now King Charles III, and Jeff Bezos. Or and these guys. I have been to the southern part of Chiribiquete, but that was back in the days. My boat driver was a boat driver.
Wow.
Yeah, that was another story for another time. But yeah, that was quite hairy at some point, because I'm actually, my regular listeners will know, because I keep on saying this. It was one point we were going up the river, the Yari, and then up to Chiribiquete, and the boat driver goes, and he's just sort of mulling away, and he goes, "Oh yeah, look over there. That's where we had Ingrid for a few days." And I was just like, "Ingrid Betancourt?" And like, yeah, that's where we moved to, from there to there. I was like, "Oh Jesus." I'm now a father of two, a very devoted husband. You know, I'm much more of a desk jockey now. I wish I could go and visit these things, but I am aware of my responsibilities. But yeah, Chiribiquete is somewhere that would be just phenomenal if you can get flights over it. But don't you have to get like permission from the military and everything for even overflights?
Apparently no. Or no, or yes and no. You just contact the local airline, and they are basically, they need to get the permission. It's certain times that you can't do it, which is obviously there's something going on at that point. But you never know until you contact them. It's like, yes, you can do it. No, you can't. It's a case of, but it's not one of the cheaper options, obviously. But
this is a good way to segue into it. Is Colombia traditionally is not a cheap place to visit. I mean, traditionally, but look at the peso to the dollar right now, to the euro. I imagine that your clients are just kind of giggling at prices. I mean, what are they saying about it?
They're saying it's still costoso.
Yeah.
Some are. Many are just saying, "Yep, great, okay." Because although that exchange rate has changed so much, but the cost of living here has changed so much as well. Yeah. You know, we've had the inflation, went up. I think I read this morning 13.6% over last year.
Yeah.
You know, the minimum wage has gone up 16%. I've just received a letter from my accountant yesterday saying 16% increase in everything I've received 14% increase for this transport operator in this area, and so it sucks. And it just means that I have to then increase my prices. But luckily, because of the exchange rate, I'm going to be increasing it very little. In fact, in some cases, I'll be able to drop it still, because obviously, it's like every year I have a better connection with people, and so I can get better rates.
Yeah.
So often, what might have cost $100 last year will cost me 90 or 95 this year. So it's a case of, things aren't that bad, but prices aren't going to be cheaper than last year. I wouldn't say that.
That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, we can enjoy the prices, but if you're only like coming down for a week to Cartagena or something, I've seen the massive increase in tourists from the US, but that's always been one of their big key points, because it's a contained eternal city of Colombian tourism, and it's easier and so on. So if these are like New Yorkers or Miami dwellers are coming down, they're flying down, the hotel is obviously, you can't get a hotel in the US for less than $100, and then in Cartagena you're paying top end for like 200, 150. And then they're eating out at some of the most sophisticated restaurants in Colombia for what ends up being is like $60 or something like that. I mean, these things make sense for an international tourist. You don't come on holiday to save money. We remind people of that as well. I was watching there's a difference between national tourists and international tourists. And as I'm dealing with so many national Colombians, there is obviously, they weigh up things and so on, but it's very interesting to see. And of course, you deal with foreigners, so you're not charging them the 19% VAT. And that, we're into the early days of 2023, and it's causing me a serious headache. And my feeling on that is, I understand the government needs money. Every government needs money, but it's not quite the moment to be charging that much. It almost seems like a punishment. The tourism industry here is only just clawing itself out of the hole. We are not out of a pandemic. It's the 4th year of pandemic. Different things have happened. Obviously, there's been progress, but we're still in the 4th year of a pandemic officially. Maybe not a disaster pandemic, but we are. And we are, we're clawing ourselves out of the hole, looking ahead at a phenomenal year. But can we not balance our books first before, put 5%, 6%, even 10%, but 19% is it. I mean, out of everyone I've had, like, for example, I'm looking at my hotels today. So there's 2 hotels, one with 10 rooms and one with 7 rooms. One room is are foreigners, so it's the VAT thing. And of course, I found what I have to do though, and what we do anyway, but is I have to, like every hotel in the world, charge upon entry. As they come in and do the check-in, we charge them, and then they don't complain about the VAT. Hello, James. So, I mean, you're not charging that, but as we say, prices don't drop. Colombia, transport is always expensive, isn't it? I mean, that's what I feel at the end.
Transport is one. Transport prices last year, costs went up basically 3 times for us last year. The fuel costs kept on going up, so we had to keep on putting them up. And now, 1st of January is when the price of everything goes up, including, the drivers as well. So definitely that's...
And gasoline's going to go up again.
Absolutely. Well, it went up 3 times. October, November, December, they put it up 3 times for an extra government tax each month. So, and this year, actually, you're saying about the EVA for the domestic market, but it's also for airlines as well on their flights. But that doesn't matter. They don't discriminate against the domestic or international. They'll charge everybody.
Well, that's the thing we could talk about, because I normally fly out here because otherwise, if I drive from Bogota to Monpos, it's 12 hours. I've got 2 kids. This is a nightmare. So we break it over 2 days, stop in Barranca Bermeja, where my wife's from. So it's always nice. But, normally I fly out Avianca has suspended their flights to Corozal, which is like the nearest functioning airport, because EasyFly have cancelled their direct flights to Montpos, which all were full, all of them from Medellin. And so it was cheaper for me to fly to Medellin on a cheap flight and then get the EasyFly flight to Montpos and then be picked up by a tuk-tuk moto taxi 10 minutes from my home. It was the best thing that ever happened. And that was last year. Those have since been suspended. Avianca suspended Corozal Sincelejo. So it's only Satena, which is, of course, the government-run airline to get to places which don't ordinarily get flights. So therefore, they charge what they want because there's no competition. Their flights are arriving at like 8:30 or 9 p.m. in the evening. I'm not driving that road at nighttime. You know, it's that kind of thing. So it's so the next nearest place is Valledupar, which is 3 hours and 3.5 hours away. Still doable. But for a family of four, because my kids are over 2 years old, so they pay, it was going to cost around 5.5 million pesos to, you know, ida y vuelta. And I'm like, that's a lot of money. And then you get to Valledupar and I have to go a car. And they're going to charge me between 300,000 and 400,000 pesos for a car to get to Montpos. And it's still 3.5 hours away. So I'm looking at almost, you know, more than 6 million pesos. That's a lot of money for a family of four. So that's why we're seeing everybody in their cars this year. You know, so I drove, which takes 2 days, have to spend the night in a hotel. And the toll booths here are ridiculous and they keep going up. So with petrol and toll booths, it's about 1 million pesos, you know, and stay in a hotel. But equally, compared with, it's a lot of money, you know. So
that's a lot of money.
National market, you know. It's so, as you say, flights are non-discriminatory.
That is true. Driving or flying, transfer. It's, if you want to save money in Colombia, you've got to stay in the one location.
Yeah.
And it, you know, for that reason, it's just,
So as you say, like, costs are not going down. Inflation looks set to continue. Do we think it's going to go up to around 20% over this year?
Look, I'm going to take a guess and say yes. I'm hoping no, but if everybody's putting their prices up now, you know, and these are people who have already put up their prices last year. That's what I don't understand. These people have put up their prices like 2, 3, 4 times last year during the year as the cost went up. And then 1st of January, all right, inflation, so we'll add another 12 to 16% on top. And it's like, but you've already put your prices up. How can you justify putting your prices up again? It doesn't. But because they're doing that, that's going to force other people to put their prices up. And it's just, you know, until that.
Well, I mean, we're going through these negativisms of the price rises and so on. You know, we hear a lot, obviously we read a lot, but we hear about how the conflict in Ukraine is affecting European travelers and, of course, the cost of living in the US. But again, you don't see any effects. I mean, I know for a fact that your office has grown massively and you're looking for even more employees.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the European market has never been a big market for me anyway, even though it is starting to grow. Just in the last few months, we've got a number of inquiries from the UK. So that is something definitely on our radar that will be expanding, probably a bit of marketing there. But as far as my team here that helps me, absolutely. You know, it was just me for a couple of years. Then I hired another person, and this last year I've hired another 3. So now there's 5 of us, 6 of us in total now. Actually, I've got another person who works on the side as well, who works as an agent sort of thing. But it's going well, and we need more people. I need to expand my team. I need more people who are fluent in English, who know Colombia, who want to sell this amazing country, or not even sell. I don't even think about it as selling, to be honest with you. It's just sharing. I just share and explain the experiences and things that people can do in different locations, and people want to do it because you can't experience things that are available here in Colombia in any other location. You can't, you know, even like, you know, when we do a cacao tour, you know, we do the authentic cacao tours where people, you know, actually see how how it was roasted, how, on an open stove, wood burning in it, in the fire, in the fire in the stove underneath. Then we do everything how it's been done for 100 years or so. It's not where you go and see everything done by a computer or machinery and that sort of stuff, which you can see in basically any other country in the world. Here, what we focus on is artisan experiences, those natural things, and that's what people want to see, or I believe, and so for that reason, we're just getting more and more people, and that's why I keep saying, I don't sell Colombia, I just share it. It's, I could just tell you different stories about different things to do in different locations, and be like, great, I want to do that, I want to do that, and it's just a matter of working out how much time you got.
It's so uplifting to hear this. That is such an interesting point about, is that you don't sell Colombia, you share it. It's because Colombia sells itself. What you need is just to nudge people in the right direction, isn't it? It's just about what time they've got, what they can fit in without overdoing it, and of course, without underdoing it. I mean, that's the thing. If you've only got sort of like 7 days, well, you've got to pick carefully. You've got 21 days, you've got obviously a lot more leeway. Distances are big, but flights are prevalent everywhere. And I get this thing. Come back to it, and I get this thing. I say to people, no more than 3 days in Cartagena, please, because there's so much more. There's so much more, and the hotel offering has improved so much around the country. It used to be lacking a lot. I mean, we all used to be hostels at one point because there was no tourism, but now there is a tourism that is more demanding, and yet we've got, I would say, sort of, I don't even want to use the word boutique or eco, because I think they're a bit more redundant, but I said very well run family hotels, top end, small enterprises that focus on service, and I think that's what you want, isn't it? Good service. That you don't sell Colombia is that's a huge compliment to Colombia.
I think so.
I think so.
It is.
It's really uplifting to hear that kind of thing. That's why I was happy. They said, let's start the year with this really positive note about travel and tourism to Colombia. And despite everything going on, we're going to have a bumper year. And I mean, provided nothing goes 100% south, I still think people are coming. I still think the word is out that you can travel most places without getting in trouble. Is that how you feel?
Absolutely. It's safe. The biggest concern is obviously people getting sick when they're here. Because I understand COVID, it's worse in other countries than here. Oh, yeah. And there's so many different variants of it now. It's, I'm pretty sure I've had it like 3 times. I don't know. It's just, it's just the flu. Now that's all that there is here now. It's not like, and it was never that bad here as it was in other countries, other locations. So I think that's a main concern for most people. Oh, you know what? Another concern? Insurance. Insurance is ridiculous how much they've gone up. They went and put out my the insurance for my car up 40%. And like, why? How can you? And my health insurance has gone up 18 or 20%.
Oh yeah.
And I'm thinking, but I know it's not just here; it's worldwide. It's like, do these people know something that we don't? That they're just trying to get that extra bit now? I don't know.
The only real thing with let's say, if we say COVID, is if there's another, like hardcore strain like Omicron. But
yeah,
the strains at this point in time seem to be, I don't know. I'm not going to get into this. We seem to be doing okay, is what I think.
Yes, absolutely.
I've definitely had it once. I know that. I got it, after the tourism fair 2 years ago, because of the 40,000 people in a big pavilion together. And that's about it. I mean, the whole family have had it. My kids have had it. Flu. My wife was knocked out for a few days. I was knocked out for a few days. We just kind of suck it up. You kind of know, all right, back to bed, take the stuff. We were in Corferias the other day back in December for Expo Artesanía. So that massive fair showing off the best designs available in Colombia. And on the way out, there was a COVID vaccination station. Nobody queuing up for it, but I was just like, we're all doing it. So we all got jabbed. Fourth jab
Yep.
right there.
Fourth.
It wasn't Sinovac, it wasn't Pfizer, it wasn't AstraZeneca. What's the other one? Moderna. So we all got Moderna right there. 15 minutes. Three of us were all vaxxed again, and I just think that's the behavior, isn't it? Just keep on doing it. It's just like getting a flu jab every year. Next variant, let's do it. Next variant, let's do it. And I will continue. And I know there's people out there who don't believe, and I know there's naysayers. This is my decision. This is my decision, taken with my family, etc. So, we do kind of defend ourselves on that. And as you say, like car insurance. What about travel insurance for foreigners? Because I mean, the US is notoriously difficult because, of course, it all comes up on their I guess it's the State Department page, and I'm sure that doesn't Guaviare have red flags on it for the State Department?
Oh, it's ridiculous. Look, I've had this discussion with a number of travelers before, which is basically don't trust your government with with what they write about Colombia. It's just not true. It's the case of, although I might be a bit biased, but the New Zealand government, what I see on their website is the closest to what's really happening here than any other. If it's the UK, no. US, no. It's just because it's all negative. It seems to be. I don't know if they don't care or don't do any research, or they don't get paid to tell the truth. That's how it feels when I read it, where it's like, you're saying you can't go here and here and here. And that's rubbish. You can. The places you can't go are the places traditionally you couldn't go. You can't go, to the places, if they're a paramilitary in a certain area, they've been there for decades. You don't go there. You can't go there. It's the same with a guerrilla. Same with any narco traficantes. You can't go. Being on the border with Venezuela, not a good idea.
Why would you?
It's just common sense sort of stuff. It's nothing new, but they portraying it as if this is still dangerous. It's just not. It's just.
So, in a nutshell, don't trust the government.
Basically, yeah. More or less. Well, it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say it's the government, it's just certain people who, and it's what I say, I don't understand why they can't write the truth.
Yeah.
And it's just, they can't. And it's whether they're not allowed to or they're instructed not to, but they just don't. I don't get it.
It's the corporate, what would you call them? Security firms, the risk firms tend to veer on being more, I would say, cautious. They tend to do that because then they can't get proven wrong when something happens. But that said, and having worked for one for 2 months, that said, they will throw caution into the wind for investments into extractive industries because, of course, everything's defended, and of course, it's a militarily defended, and of course, it's a income, and they're the people who pay the bills for these executive security companies. So there's a duplicitous nature there. Having been involved for 2 months, I've seen inside the belly of the beast. For tourism and people doing maybe academic research, they're very wary because, of course, nobody wants anything to happen to a professor or a student who's doing some sort of research. By the same time, if you're going to open up a gold mine, you're going to get a client who signs up for a 5-year thing. Each report that is commissioned costs in the region of $12,000, and it can be a report of only 10 pages with a presentation. This is what pays the bills. So I think you had a point there when you said, I don't know if they're paid or not. We can suggest that they're paid, but we know that the executive security companies of this nature receive their money for being cautious. And then, of course, they receive their money for promoting extractive industries and other things. So there's that, which, of course, puts it all in conflict with tourism and, of course, what the government wants to do. But I just think, that's a behind the scenes thing. No one should be going to the border with Venezuela. Intrepid journalist is fine. You're out there doing your job. You know the risks you're taking. those of us who are out here, who've been out here for a long time, have your contacts, know what you're doing, know what you're reporting on, who to check in with. You know, they're the right people to do this. No tourist should be out there doing this. But I think when you talk about Caño Cristales, which is right there, it's Meta, isn't it? It's right there in Meta.
Yes.
The river I mean, the multicolored river, the most beautiful river in the world, when the algae is flowering and it's that purple and pink color. And I mean, at some point, I'm going to take my kids when the younger one is a little older, because therefore he will remember it. That's the idea. You know, that used to be the Casa Verde. That used to be like headquarters for the FARC, hence a lot of the protection of the area, because it was off limits. It's so exciting to go down there to see the evolution of a tourist destination, where the town itself was run by the FARC guerrillas. They used to deal, you know, people were paid in coca paste, people were paid in gold dust and so on, things that were drawn from the river, things that the illicit economies. And so it's that interesting point where you can hear and learn about what Colombia was, but to see a true marvel of nature. And I think that that's one thing that the government obviously does not want to promote, but at the same time, a visitor to Colombia wants to know about the realities in Colombia. And do you get that kind of inquiry when they're saying, listen, but I also want to know about the politics, and I also want to know what happened? Because a lot of the guides in Caño Cristales are former raspachines, so the kids who picked the coca leaves, you know, for the production of cocaine. They know the trails and the countryside better than anyone. What has been your experience with this?
Absolutely, yeah. People want to know. Not everybody's interested in it, but we basically, Caño Cristales is a good point. When we were there, the first day, we were, you know, on a lancha up the river, then, you know, climbing up this really steep place. And up there, that was like the first part where, you know, you could see a radio tower that had been blown up. And that was the FARC had blown it up. And it was a Red Cross radio tower, which is obviously used by the national government as well.
Yeah.
But you can also, when I was there, we were able to talk to guides and talk to the hosts. Like I stayed in the hotel with the owner and that sort of stuff. So it was great to get to know his family and all that sort of thing. And he was explaining how things were up until, I think it was 2006. I actually wrote a lot of notes about this, and I've got to write a blog, but I haven't got it right now. But he wrote, I think it was until 2006, possibly 2008, that the FARC were there. And then the government came in a year later, and then tourism started in 2012. So it's only been 10 years that there's actually been tourism going there. But here's, you know, explaining like over there is where they, you know, put bodies and that sort of stuff, that sort of thing. But they couldn't build much, and it was always very difficult to be able to progress doing anything basically until they were gone. They weren't basically allowed because they were the bosses of everything. Business was crap. Basically, you couldn't make money, because if you were seen as making more money, then obviously you had to give them the money, the profit, and that sort of thing. So there is something that I know our guides at least, are happy to explain what it used to be like there and what it is now. But having said that, as much as I don't like a lot of what the FARC did or do, in a way, they protected so many areas. We have all these national parks here now because of them. They would not let anybody cut down trees. There was no deforestation going on. You know, Caño Cristales is how it is now because of them. There's oil there, and, you know, there's many companies and countries want this natural resources that are in there, and the FARC was stopping that happening. And luckily for us, the government has also seen the benefit of that not happening as well. But you know, the national parks are the size they are because of the FARC protecting them. That's probably the only thing that I'll say positive about FARC. But other than that, okay, getting back to what you're saying, what we provide in Medellin, I think, is the best history tour that we provide of Colombia. where we combine a tour of Comuna Tracy with the city tour. There, you learn the graffiti, you learn the history of the graffiti, you understand the stories behind it, you learn everything about the paramilitary, you learn about the guerrilla, you learn about the army, the police, just the drug traffickers, everybody and everything, including obviously Pablo Escobar, one of the most evil men in the world. You learn his story. You see things that he's blown up. You see a park, a memorial park, where you can understand things as well, and the whole process of what happened in the last 60 odd years and everything. So you learn the truth and not just stuff that you'll see on a Netflix drama sort of thing. So that's, for me, if you want to really understand the history of Colombia and the dramas that it has had and still does have to an extent, Medellin is a place, and that's our tour. It's a full-day tour that we provide. It's just, for me, it's like one of the best things about Medellin is understanding not everything about Colombia, but understanding a lot and how the culture has changed because of everything that's happened with the violence in the past and current violence.
I think you're absolutely right. I think because I don't think you can come to Medellin without that, because it is an identifying. It's something that identifies a city. We understand. Nobody hasn't heard of Pablo Escobar. It's an unfortunate, miserable truth. But so people are always going to ask why. I'm not saying we should do a glorious Pablo Escobar tour. It's to understand the human suffering to therefore hopefully not repeat these things, and to sympathize and empathize with a population who have, despite everything, managed to flourish and create a dynamic city. And before anyone jumps on a bandwagon here, neither Bruce nor I are supporting the FARC. The issue that the land was off limits and that the FARC were there has created the national parks as they were, and has prohibited, in many, many cases, huge and environmentally damaging extractive industries. I believe there is coltan as well near to Caño Cristales, which of course is incredibly lucrative. And I also know, as you said, because of the oil, that there was talk about fracking nearby as well, within some kilometers. And wherever you stand on this, it's just too close. It's just too close. So I mean, even if you're not like an overwhelming environmentalist and so on, these things need to be further away from areas of outstanding natural beauty. And I think we can all agree on that. And then the increase of tourism, which of course is limited to Caño Cristales. They do not allow mass tourism there. It's, the numbers are limited because it's a very delicate part of the world. The ecosystem.
Yeah, it's just over 300 people per day can go into that part of the national park.
And the increase of tourism allows for a window of transparency and allows for people to understand, and therefore, should anything start taking place as in terms of extractive industries, we will have an outcry because people have seen it. Yeah, I think that's another side of things. So when we have to protect these things, and of course, I mean, it's no secret the locals, I guess they're called Macarenenses or something in that town, the Macarena town, they are the strongest proponents of protection and understanding what they have there. So, if the local community is in charge, then we can expect this to long continue, the security. So, Bruce, we've covered a lot of topics, places that you love, places that are growing. We've talked about